Okay, hi everybody. I'm back finally, and I'm going to have some free time this month to do videos, and so I'm going to talk a bit more along the lines of where I was going with the Shhhhells, and today I'm going to talk a lot about the base chakra and the divine animal and the gender issue, right? So I really don't talk about gender very often on here. I've done a couple of videos where I've talked about it. But I don't like to because I think there's so much noise online about this subject already. And feminism and the men's movement and the MGTOWs and the incels. And it's like a lot of angry noise, a lot of polarization. And I have always tended to resonate more with someone like Camille Paglia on the issue of feminism. It's like, okay, yeah, women, especially during this century, needed to wake up and find our voices and be able to have a better time self-actualizing. But part of that has to do with how we relate to men, you know? And Camille Paglia, instead of being, you know, a male basher, has done so much work for so many decades. Obviously, she's done a lot of internal integration. And it shows because her entire perspective is more integrated, and I think in a lot of ways she understands the issues that males are facing better than some males do, which is really valuable. And so I find, like, when I hear people who, you know, are blaming the opposite gender, you find there's like a certain percentage of people that just really polarize on all of these kind of subjects, and you see the same thing in politics. And it's like they just short circuit when they're faced with the opposition's point of view. So anyway, I mean, I don't suspect that the gender wars are going to be solved any day, because this has gotten noisier and more intense over the past few years. And it seems like social media is almost making it worse. There's so much talk about it. And I do appreciate the people who talk about the esoteric and spiritual side of, you know, the divine masculine and the divine feminine. I think the only way that this is ever going to heal is if people start dealing with the masculine and feminine within their own psyche, and the connection between the spirit and the body. And so I was lucky recently. I happened upon this film, and I did not read any reviews or watch any trailers with spoilers before I saw this film. It was all a surprise to me. So all of the twists were a complete surprise, and that was really delightful. And the reason I think this film had such a deep impact, for me personally at least, and other people are saying the same, is because there's no dialogue. There's no talking. And that allows something to come through that I think is what all the yakking about all of this is buried. It's buried underneath that. And I would say, you know, it has to do with what I'm talking about, where a person actually does the inner work and they're integrating. What happens when you're really doing integration? Where do you go? You go into the heart. And that is what comes through loud and clear with this movie. I'll tell you right now, the gender issue is not going to get solved externally until this happens internally for a lot more people. And then in the middle of it all, we have that red turtle, and we have Mother Earth. And she's a big tortoise, right? The Earth is really two tortoises, and each hemisphere thinks that it's the top, right? But it's two tortoises, and each shell is a hemisphere, and they're mirroring each other. And so in a way, you sort of can see through the toroidal structure of our reality, the masculine and feminine do come together. And the separation, I think, really is so that this can happen. And what happens when you separate and then come back together again is there's this voltage. That's where the love really is. And I think this film, when you really see the twist in this film, you'll understand how this relationship between the masculine and feminine has everything to do with the relationship between the soul and the earth, or the divine and the animal and the lower self, right? So you start to see how life can be kind of a love affair. And right now we're so estranged from nature. I was going to make this video today, and this morning I decided to go check out the news. And this is one of the first headlines I saw. I'm like, how symbolic. How symbolic. That's kind of symbolic of what I feel like is happening to the way that we're relating to nature right now. It's very parasitic. Now, that brings me back to this card, because this card really is the card of the divine animal, and this whole archetypal. I would say in some ways this card really describes what we're here to do, why we're incarnating into the lower self is an animal. I'll tell you right now, like when my blind animal wants, when I want to eat, like when you're in the middle of eating and you're like, rah, 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 and you're ravenously hungry, that's when you're connecting with that animal, right? And the beauty of this card is this woman who represents a spirit, she's dressed in white, she's closing the mouth of that lion gently, because she's tempering that lower self. She's not letting it get out of control and eat everything in sight. And she's also shutting the mouth, which is part of what that whole silence is golden is about. When you go into silence, why is it golden? Because it's going to eventually lead you to the heart. And so in some ways I feel like it's that's the condition that we're in, is that the lower self being sort of divorced or estranged from the quote-unquote higher self or spiritual self or internal self is running amok and acting like a big old parasite, and that's the ego shell. And that ego shell, it's a voracious animal, and it doesn't stop feeding. And that's what's leading to the destruction of our environment right there. So we have this division between the sexes, this division between the spirit and the environment, and what's going to heal that, is eventually. I actually think that watching this is sort of kind of gave me a little bit of an archetypal healing. I think by not putting any dialogue in this film, they really were able to almost kind of bring it into a bit of a mythology. And I really hope other people end up seeing it and liking it. I think some of you would really like it. So anyway, I wanted to just do a little chat on that stuff today, and I'll be back with more soon. I'm finally kind of more organized, and my health is a lot better. It took some doing and troubleshooting, but eventually, I think within the next month or two, because I have a lot of technical stuff I have to go through, but I'm going to be launching something on another website. So anyway, I'll be back soon. Have a good day.